We ready to go?
Always.
We got 30 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Neil, you ready? Are we recording already? Yep. We are? Oh, okay. All right. Well, people who tuned in early, the people with the membership and the paid subscription, they were already here during the planning session that we just had we were recording when we didn't know.
Got real.
Thanks, production. Thanks, Neil, for doing that. But for now, we should, all of the other folks that are future subscribers,
that's right,
we should probably welcome them to the show. Don't you
Absolutely. Think? Thanks for being here on another hump day. It is now Hanging
with the Homeboys.
That's
and
right.
You are here on December 4th. This is 2024.
Yes.
Is that like close to a palindrome or something like that? Like 12-4-24.
It's close. I see what you're trying to do. It's not real, but it still feels good.
It's
so many even numbers in there.
It's a thing.
So many factors.
If we were to talk about it enough, then we could probably make it a thing.
You think? Wait a second, man. How could one man have all that? How can two men have all that power? That's the question.
You have to believe. You have to believe it, man.
Well, I believe.
Okay. So you guys are here. We always go through our segments. We've got our home field advantage for buyers and sellers and agents. We have homeology, where we've got some industry stats. Full house, where we like to talk about some design trends. And house party, where we like to have funny stuff going on.
That's right.
Yes. Neil brings it back at the end, and we do the home stretch or hit a home run or whatever the case may be.
And bring it home.
Today, as we start out here at Home Field Advantage, let's talk about how the buyers have a leg up, or how the things have gotten better for them lately. And that is through our new processes with our buyer agency agreement and touring agreements that we're using up front because of the way that rules have changed for realtors.
Do you remember the date in which our world changed?
It was August 17th, I think, is when it was required.
That's pretty good. So that was when there was a whole bunch of headlines all over the news and all over the internet talking about the way you buy a house is never going to be the same again. And in some ways, it was a lot of hyperbole, but in some ways, it actually is true. There have been some significant changes, but it really... What do you think? Now that we've actually got to do this for some months in practice, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, our conversations have become more standardized in the beginning. Like, a lot of times as agents, we were having a buyer agency conversation at the time of writing an offer. And now we're having that buyer agency conversation up front. And we're doing that because we are required to inform the buyer so that they are better off than they were before, so that they know how commission is being paid.
Come on.
And that's like the gist of the whole rule change. And honestly, it's made for a better situation with me and my buyers going forward.
And there were some things in place, at least locally from where we are from, that the things that we were talking about being disclosed up front would have had to have come out at some point at the contract before the person buys the house. But oftentimes the person has already been clouded, and the chances of them making a different decision that far into the deal goes down. So the fact that you're disclosing it way later it's really more of just checking something off the list to not get you in trouble, rather than giving the buyer all of what they need to make an informed decision right out of the gate. And it takes a real salesperson to not be afraid of what they might be giving up by letting a buyer know their options, including the fact that I can show you this house, you can decide that you want it, and you can go ahead and buy it without my help at all. Unfortunately, that fact never came up before this agreement, and now it's something that has to come up in the beginning, and that's something that I'm happy about.
Yeah, so you've appreciated that change has taken place, or that making, I honestly like that it's making the conversation happen, not just between me and the buyer that I'm working with that day, but the fact that that's happening in rooms or houses or out in front of the front door all over our city and all over our state and all over the country, that the buyers are now being informed of how that commission is being paid, which in our area, it's usually being paid by the seller, just like it always was. It's just that the buyer didn't know that before. And now I get to explain that to them. And I feel like the way that I explain it is going to be comforting. And if there's other agents that are explaining it in a different way, not like I am, maybe that's not comforting, and maybe that drives those buyers over to work with me.
Bingo. And the other thing that I'm thinking about is if we have people who have trouble with doing it, or they're so entitled because of what the old way was, and they're just inflexible, and they decide that they don't want to renew their license because they're just tired of all this extra red tape. I say good riddance. Honestly, I'm not going anywhere. We're not scared of what's happening here. We're going to be here through all that. So let the people who are a little bit conflicted go and do something else for a living, and that just saves more customers for us.
We're all getting better. We're getting better. In this conversation, we're not getting funnier. That's one thing I've noticed about this little piece right here, but that's okay. We're going to fix that, Now let's talk about something, a home field advantage element for a seller.
Yeah.
And,
is it an advantage?
Is it an advantage? You tell me, mister, I just listed something on Thanksgiving Day.
Well, first of all, personally, I'm not even going to lie to you. We needed to go to Nebraska where my wife's family lives, and we ended up taking 2 separate cars. And having the 2 listings prior to the holiday is the reason for that.
2 car? What? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No. What I'm saying is Monica and Sonny, they left on Tuesday afternoon. I didn't leave to go to Nebraska until Wednesday morning.
Man.
And it was because of making sure everything was the way it needed to be before I left town. There was just a lot of stuff that was coming. So as far as the sellers were concerned, it didn't stop anything that they had going on. But for me, it definitely changed some things. And, I'll think twice about it in the future. Now, I had 2 different outcomes. I had one house of the retail variety, ready to go. Any kind of buyer can buy this house. And I mean, a really clean home. You went through it. Mm-hmm. And then the other house I had would be the opposite. This is going to be a wholesale or investor type special to where this is not turnkey. Nobody is going to move into this house immediately after getting the keys to it. Okay?
Needs a lot of work.
Needs a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And so the house that needed a lot of work, to this moment, 0 showings.
Whoa.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Now, is that because of the fact that we did it on a holiday weekend, or is it have something to do with the price versus the condition? Perhaps I was too honest in my description of the home, and and which is a whole other discussion in all of itself.
Sure.
Because I could have hired the photographer that make this place look like, oh my gosh.
Right.
I could have. Maybe I should have. But the truth of the matter is, and just a quick aside, what I didn't want to happen was for people to come in and go, what the heck? This is not what he described. And the pictures make it look like it's something that it's not. So no traction there. The retail house that Luke was able to take a person to, we got plenty of traction. We had at least 4 families show up to the open house. We had multiple contracts, and that house is now under contract.
Dang.
It's going to close on December 19th.
We wrote an offer, too. My clients and I wrote an offer the first
offers
day. Yeah,
before anybody else got to.
Yeah, before we almost did it, but Thanksgiving, other things got in the way. But anyway, so that worked out, and you got that sold. You were honest about the fixer-upper, and so it sounds like investors and contractors and people, considering that listing as a business opportunity, they weren't out on Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving weekend looking at houses, and as an agent too, I want to mention that if I get a call from my client on a Thanksgiving saying, hey, I want to go out on Black Friday morning and look at this Black Friday house, man, it's not my favorite, because that is holiday time. And that's why I have a team too, because I might say, well, hey, one of my team members might be able to meet you, and I would pay them to do that because I'm just trying to have a little bit of holiday time. And that's kind of why I bring up the idea of listing on a holiday, because there's 2 sides of it too. There's the seller who's letting people into their house over the holidays. They're maybe changing their life when they could have been, at their home. Like enjoying their home, enjoying the holiday,
Every private showing, they got to leave.
Yep. And then there's also agents the agent actually goes out and meets with people too. And that agent, we deserve to have a little bit of a holiday sometimes, The ironic thing about our work is that we work when other people are off work a lot of times, and holidays is actually like when people are off work, but they're coming into town even, and they might want to move into town. So it's kind of like, man, I have to go do this showing. I have to go show this house on, while my second side of the family is doing Thanksgiving dinner. I have to. And that's the thing that's why I bring this up, because it's just a necessary, I don't want to call it evil. It's like a necessary dysfunction of what exists in the real estate business. On holidays, you got to list and you got to sell sometimes.
Well, here's the other thing too, guys. It's a case by, we're talking to the agents at this point. I mean, for all you potential sellers, listen close and everything, but to the agents out there, our word is very important to our clients if we're doing our job at all. I could have come up with many reasons that were actually real. I wouldn't have been coming up with anything. I could have given not excuses, but true reasons why, listing on a holiday is not going to hurt us, but is not going to be as productive as listing on a regular weekday, or on a regular weekend. And one of the things that I thought about was, if this exact same house got listed on a Thursday, on a normal weekend, no holiday, and Monday or Tuesday comes and I haven't sold it, it really, when your house is retail ready and you think you have it priced right and it doesn't sell, that is tough. I felt like on this one, if Monday or Tuesday rolled around and it didn't sell, number one, people would say, well, it was the holiday weekend. They give that grace. And number two, they'd still feel like, now that I know how clean this house is, I got to get something done on here because the clock is running out. I've already got 3 or 4 days on market. I can't play around anymore. Ultimately, that's kind of what happened. But hey,
how many showings did you have?
Private?
Yeah.
I think we had about 5 private showings we averaged about 1 showing per day.
And how many at the open house?
4 families.
4. So over the course of 4 days, there were 9 families or groups that came through to look at that house.
And I didn't even include you in that. So, So
Jeez.
Really 10. Yeah.
My life, man. I'm just not getting included all over the place.
Listen, have your people have your people decided whether or not they'd like to buy a house still, or are you still waiting for them to say anything? Because that was tough. They were kind of thinking, and then all of a sudden you hit them with this opportunity, and it's kind of do or die, and it made them a little gun shy to swallow that payment at that moment.
It's the second time with these folks that at the price of $160. That they have gotten to where the seller agrees, or the seller has giving us a price that's just within their range. I mean, a couple of thousand, 3,000 or 4,000 higher than what they had offered last.
Yeah.
And that $28 a month or $15 a month, they've decided they don't want to move forward. So it's about the monthly payment. But I think it's actually about the monthly payment before they make the offer, even, they're so close that they're not actually that close. They're actually liking the house and what it is, but thinking it's above their budget that they've set for themselves, not that the lender is setting. It's actually well below what the lender is setting, but that's very responsible buying on their part. And these are folks on a fixed income. They're great people. They're working with the I think I told you the story, like he's going to be one of the master of arms at the Kansas legislature this upcoming session, which he's never done before. He'll make like $8,000 doing that. And she's working for a legislator in the office. She'll make like $15,000 doing that over the session. And they're just, they're retired folks, and they're working more, and I think money is a little tight, and I showed them something really nice that fits the bill perfectly, puts them in a neighborhood that they want to be in, and they love it. It's just more than they want to spend, and I can't fault them for that, and I can't pressure them for that either.
This situation we're talking about could be its own show, but to contrast, to go from one family who is hesitating for good reason, their budget, Let's talk about sellers who do want to do the opposite of hesitating. They're calling you on the verge. It's so close to be considered what we would call a distressed sale that they feel like every day that they don't have their house on the market is hurting them physically, not just financially. Let's talk about your situations where you got the person wanting to list and they want to do it right now.
Yeah, it's really a marketing situation. Like you're mainly talking about distressed homes. Like
I just mean the attitude would make you believe that there's somebody behind the scenes with a gun on these people's ribs saying, if you don't get this thing, like this is John Q. Like there's somebody's about to die. Like and I think sometimes it can be with the nice house or the distressed house.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the situation that we were thinking about where the seller is just gung ho. Seller's just ready to go. And I think it's because it's natural. Like that seller has worked so long to get to this point where that house is ready to sell. And they've told you what day it's going to be. And when they're ready, they want it listed the next day.
Because that's how it works.
Right. Well, and I think understandably so from their perspective, because they've done so much work. It's such a big decision. I can't fault a seller for that. But for an agent, it's really hard to push that timeline out just a little bit longer. I don't know how. That's what I'd like to hear from other agents out there, or even marketing directors, because Neil's right here. And this conversation is a lot about marketing, that the seller's ready to go. They want to go tomorrow, but the marketing work still needs to be done and it might take a couple of days to do that.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there has comments that they can share with us about talking the seller off a ledge or, paring back that enthusiasm, that unbridled enthusiasm, I'd like to hear it. What do you think about that?
One thing I think about is something that I used to see more often, but I'm seeing less and less of it as my years go on in this industry. And that is the person who was obviously dealing with some kind of time thing. They list the house and it only has like a couple of pictures. Yeah. And then in the description literally says more professional pictures coming soon, something along those lines. And so it goes back to something that we've heard since we were children, which is a first impression is everything. And do you want to risk? Is it worth getting on the market 36 hours sooner, but not fully dressed to go to the prom?
Right.
Versus waiting 36 hours, but being a stunner.
Can't go without that vest.
Come on.
Get dressed. Don't go without the vest. That's all we need is a few idioms, Is that a colloquialism? What is that?
Oh, no, that is not that.
It's not a colloquialism.
Yes, I can tell you that.
Scratch that. You're going to edit that part out, Neil? Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to, my line has always been like, look, it's in my marketing plan. Like, we're not going to market until 100% of our marketing is done. It says it in writing, and because we want to put our best foot forward, just like you said, because you might miss them. What if you put up that perfect picture of the front of the house and you don't have the rest of the perfect pictures? So,
dude, that picture of the front of the house ain't even going to be perfect. It's going to be from your iPhone.
It is.
Okay? It ain't going to be, you're not going to have the professional photographer come by, shoot one pic, then come back 2 days later and do the rest of them. No, it's going to be a terrible picture.
It's not going to be good no matter what, even if it's got a deer out there eating your daisies. That picture is not going to be good. We need the perfect set of pictures, because the deer and the daisy one, it's not going to make the buyers come back online. They're going to see, they're like, "Oh, I already clicked on the deer and the daisy." Crappy picture of the front of the house, and the rest of the stuff, it didn't look good. So I'm not wasting my time on that. I'm just going to click on to the next houses. That's why we put our best foot forward, because we might only get one chance.
That's right. And that's the difference between being a true consultant and being an order taker, which is somebody who is so afraid of being fired, being disliked, or at not agreeing with their client that they just let their client. You're an instrument, a literal tool for your client to do what they want to do based on what they want to do, not on what should be done, because you are the professional in the situation. They do this every 7 years. You do this every month. Okay, don't forget that.
One thing, so I think that's a pretty good discussion of that issue. So if we can talk a little bit about move on to the homeology segment.
That's right.
Let's talk about some stats, how stats can be used when you're advising those sellers.
Oh.
I'm curious. I have a stat that I think I want to talk about in terms of number of showings and all that type of thing. I didn't ask you before, so I'm surprising you here.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite stat? A favorite stat that you like to tell a seller about, or one that you hate even?
No, I would say, number one, I'm definitely a stats guy, because that's the concrete and the heft behind the things that we are telling them. It allows us. Number one, we're already paying a membership fee to get access to information that the general public doesn't have. If we do not aggregate that information to come up with why we do what we do when we do what we do, then we're honestly a disgrace to the profession. I mean, that's why we have that information. And too many people just go off of gut feelings, and they'll say what they think is going on instead of looking within what was in reach to actually figure out what's really happening. And what you were talking about, one of the things that you do that, I need to put into my bag, or at least it needs to be in the front of my bag of tricks and not something I think about later, is using the showing data that there's a lot of agents that don't even realize that this showing data exists, because maybe they're used to using an app on their phone to coordinate all their showings. But it turns out on the desktop, that same app or website can do way more tricks.
Yeah, definitely. The tricks are where it's at. The showing time is what we use. And it's, for me, in talking to sellers, prospective sellers who want to put their house on the market, or sellers that have their house on the market, showing time is prime time. Because what I do is I'm looking into the number of showings that are taking place in their price range. And you can slice it even by time frame too. So if somebody has put their house on the market 2 weeks ago, and we want to know what kind of activity is going on, should we reduce the price? Are we getting exposure to the market? Have we had the same amount of showings as other properties? I can slice it for the last 2 weeks, and I can slice it for the price range, and I can slice it for our area. So I can be sure that if we've had 3 showings, I can see the average number of showings for all the listings in that price range. And I know that we've had more showings than those properties or less showings than those properties.
Or we're right in line.
Or exactly. Right. Yeah. I love to say that we're right in line, because that means that our marketing is successful. We're exposing the property to everybody that's interested in that, and we're not missing anybody. So that's really great. And then the other thing, if you see that there's only been 1 showing, I think in our area, 6 or 7 showings, that's pretty successful over a couple of weeks. That's pretty good. Yeah. If you haven't sold yet. 1 showing, not so much, but that probably means there's either something wrong with the house, or maybe there's not anybody active in that price range right now. If there's nobody active, then maybe you don't want to put your house on the market right now.
Well, and at this point, the toothpaste's already out the tube. So it's a real important distinguishment to use that information that you got to make, because now all of a sudden, if you don't go and find out that there's nobody looking in that price range, what's a person that feels like, they need to do something going to do? They're going to tell you to drop the price.
There you go.
And it might not even be necessary.
True. And you didn't miss anybody.
You didn't miss anybody.
You didn't turn anybody off. There just wasn't anybody looking.
Yeah, and that's why some of the old stuff that we've been taught, like 10 showings or 2 weeks, is a good time to revisit whether or not our price strategy is working. So one has a time element. If we don't get any kind of action within the 2 weeks, and we probably got something wrong. And if we got 10 showings that happen, whether that's over the course of a month or over the course of 1 week, we should have an idea of what's going on with our pricing and marketing strategy by that point.
Having that signpost, and no matter what your period, if it's 2 weeks or 10 showings and you're reevaluating, it's just really important that you are using some homeology, some stats, and justifying your decisions with the tools that you have.
Come on.
That was a great way to articulate that earlier, that as agents out there, we have to be using that.
Come on.
Okay, well, yeah, you got to have a full bag. You know, we like Full House because that was like the funniest show. And was it even funny?
Listen, I'm not gonna do that to our people, and I'm not gonna do that to myself. But listen, it was aspirational. I don't think it had the same amount. I would definitely say the Cosby Show was funnier.
It was.
But at the end of the day, we all wanted to have a family and grow up one day and support our kids, and there's a lot of that on display.
Was it Uncle Dave? Was he the comedian guy in Full House? Dave Coulier?
You messed that up so bad.
Uncle what? There's Uncle Jesse, but then Uncle...
It's not Dave. And
what
now
is
you
it?
done messed up his... Oh,
you
man,
don't know
I
that?
told you.
Uncle
It's
Joey.
And he's not even an uncle. They didn't even call him Uncle Joey in that.
No way.
We did that to him. I just looked that up.
No
Jesse
way.
was the true uncle. And it was just Joey.
What is this
never
called?
Uncle Joey.
Is this called the Doppler effect? What's that effect even? I know I'm messing
Mandela?
everything. The Mandela effect.
Mandela.
This is a Mandela effect thing.
Yes.
Uncle.
Yeah, so we're
Uncle
here.
Joey.
Breaking news. He was never Uncle Joey. He was just Joey.
But he was still in the Full
Look
House.
at the DVDs.
This wasn't even the funny section. This is about the design part,
Yes.
And Uncle Joey, okay, no more Uncle Joey.
Yeah.
All right.
Joey Gladstone. I know.
Design trends, all right? So recently, or I have a listing coming out this Friday.
Oh.
And
You're first to know.
This home is an open floor plan, and it has 3 different types of ceiling in it.
So you can stand in one position and see 3 different ceilings?
Yeah, and actually that's not even count. Yes, that's 4
pretty-
different types of ceiling.
Damn.
I wasn't counting the flat ceiling.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What does this mean even? What is, how?
I think our audience, you better keep talking because, I think people are having a hard time even, understanding what the heck you mean.
Barrel ceiling, beam ceiling, trade ceiling, flat ceiling.
Wow.
Bunch of ceilings,
And how were those ceilings organized? By area of the house?
They are, yeah. Each room, each area in the great room, the open floor plan, had a different type of ceiling. So when you walk in, you have a barrel ceiling that was actually pretty cool, had a nice light fixture hanging in it, and that was right in the foyer.
Okay. So they're distinguishing the foyer from the rest of it. Okay.
As you step into the living room, there was a very nice beam ceiling. That was
I'm
everywhere.
following
It was,
you.
it
I
was
got
all
one of those.
Painted beams. It was very modern. This house is built in 2017.
Vaulted?
Not vaulted, just beams.
Just beamed. Okay.
And
tall
then,
ceilings, though, right?
pretty tall, probably 10-foot ceilings. Yeah, I'd say so. And then as you're in the dining area above the large island, then you just have the flat ceilings. Got some nice light fixtures there. And then right next to that, in the dining area, you have a trade ceiling that was, I think, 3 or 4 levels in that tray. And it's cool. It's the seller said that this was the builder's last house that he had his hands on. I think that company is still building, but this builder was actually, he's a prominent guy. Yeah. And he said he was in there working on these things himself. So it almost seems to me kind of like a showpiece. Yeah. But what do you think about 4 ceiling? You haven't seen it.
Well, one of the things that we talked about before the show that was important to me was, did they try to make each of this area of the house have a different color paint, or did they bring it all together with the paint? And tell me about your answer there.
There were different colors in this whole house. There were different colors all over walls everywhere. There were green walls and yellow walls and blue walls and gray walls. And what he did after our initial meeting is he went and he neutralized
at whose
all
suggestion?
The colors.
Or was it just like y'all came together? And
it was actually
what is understood doesn't have to be explained, and he just got the paint out. I mean, what?
He loved the colors. He loved the colors before, and I put it in writing. Actually, I didn't tell him that I disliked the colors.
This is going to be good.
I put it in writing to him, and then he neutralized the colors.
Wait, time out. Tell me, what do you mean you put it in writing? Come on, talk to the people.
What the hell
you talking about? You slide a note over to him and just.
we talked about a lot of things. You know, there were some negatives that needed to change, and we talked about those more. I think while I was with him, I might have said some of these colors aren't neutral, but I think you understand that, and I'm not necessarily saying that you should paint, but you could. You know, and then this was through a relocation of an employer. So when we do this, there are 2 real estate agents that come in by standards. So there's an agent from another company, and then there's me that comes in, and we both fill out reports. So we get to talk to the seller, and then we also get to put on a report that goes to a third party that says these are the things that we think need to be improved in order to optimally market this property and sell it. And I think, you know, I pepper it in when I talk to him, and then I put it in writing more to this other person, and he gets the written report and gets to read it. And he took it to task, if you will. Yeah. But he also did a lot of other things. You know, he went out and bought like little bowls and put stuff in them. And this guy has really been fixing his house up the way that he should to maximize its potential. So, yeah.
And I know Luke, because I have been this seller for him in a much lower price range. But when Luke has a seller who is willing to do the stuff, you know, who's instead of a seller that says, well, this is what it is. This is why I hired you, right? Get out there and sell it. Like, no, we want a seller who's going to be actively involved and who understands why we're doing what we're doing. But in an inflationary environment, everybody doesn't have the disposable income. And I will also let you know that the conversation he's talking about having when it comes to making changes to the house, the higher the price range, the more touchy those conversations can get. You know, the more money people have, the more pride they have, and the more that they feel like the stuff that they're doing is the right thing. So there is an art, and that's why I wanted to make sure that he covered how he was able to make that happen. And yeah.
How do you feel about the commitment that should be there from the agent to communicate those things to the seller? I mean,
that's our job.
Exactly.
Right? And once again, the difference between a professional and an order taker. You just want to win the job, then you're going to come in there and say, wow, this is great. Oh, my gosh. I love that color. That reminds me of when I was a child, you know. And I can tell you this, the more successful a person is, the more they can see through somebody that is just trying to glad hand them into something. They've already been treated as if they're God's gift their entire life because of the things that they've achieved. They need somebody who's going to come in and be a pro and tell them what they need to hear. Don't ever forget what I'm telling you. And the more money they make and the more successful they are, the more they need somebody real, not somebody to come in there and tell them how great they are.
That is the art of it, actually. It's the glad handing at the same time that you're telling the truth. You know, you have to be able to weave those things together.
Not the weave.
Yeah. I've been weaving this whole time, man. You know what I've done, though, is I've weaved us all the way to, like, our time expiration here today.
Yeah, okay.
We have our producer that has another appointment, so we're going to skip the house party story today, but I'm bringing this one back. It's about mail. It's about mail fraud, even mail dereliction of mail. Yeah, it's a dookie story too. So anyway, all right, Neil, what do you have for home run, home stretch, home plate house rules?
Well, we don't have time to expand on the marketing side of it, so we'll save that.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a completely left field on it.
Ooh.
And it's not even real estate related.
Oh.
All right.
What is the one cereal that was most disappointing to you? So like when you were a kid, was there a cereal that you were just like so hyped up to try and then you had it and it was the biggest letdown?
Wheaties. Freaking Wheaties, dude. Who cares about Wheaties? I care about Wheaties. I love them. I want to be the Wheatie guy, you know? But they're gross, man. I probably only got like 4 boxes and it was just for the person on the box.
Listen, Luke, the fact that you thought those had a chance of being anything but Raisin Bran in an orange box, bless your childhood heart.
I'm hopeful. I
saw the ruse.
I was going to be 6'7".
I saw a cereal that needed Michael Jordan to even have a chance at getting on a breakfast table. Okay, that's what I saw. So I said, no. Honestly, The disappointment for me, I'm gonna go just a little bit different, is when they give you a really great cereal and then for some reason it just goes away. And one cereal that I'm thinking about that comes to my mind that wasn't too sweet. It didn't have to go on the deep end of sweetness to be great. But when you compare it to its original cereal, it was so much better. And that is the Rice Krispie Treats cereal. Neil, don't make that face. Now, is that one of I don't even remember that happening, or that cereal sucked and it deserves to be gone? I need to know.
I don't remember it happening.
This is me.
You don't remember that cereal? Wow.
This is me dunking on a Wheaties box.
Wow.
See how I drew myself here, and then I was like, "Dang, I'm dribbling." I was like, "Nope, I just got to draw
and
the
just
goal
like
right
that.
there." That's how far I am above the rim, bro. Because I've been eating Wheaties.
Oh my, yeah. And you grew up
I
into a
probably should
strong,
have just got
tall
amped
man.
up on Rice Krispie Treat cereal, though.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and
That
the fact
would've
that
did it.
Neil doesn't even know that happened. We'll be getting back to you on when Rice Krispie Treats took over the world and when it disappeared for no good stinking reason. But that was a great cereal.
Bro, I mean, I don't know. I just want to say that this was one hell of a buzzer beater. We killed it, bro. Thanks for coming out and chilling with us on Hangin'
with the homeboys.
We'll see you next time.
That's right. Peace out.